WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM's Master of Business Administration is designed to accommodate the career needs of professionals across a variety of work organizations. More information at business.udmercy.edu.
On 1019 WDET, I'm Tia Graham, and I'm joined by Bridge Detroit reporter Malachi Bear. No, it's okay, Malachi. We're joined by Malachi Bear. Malachi, what's up?
I'm so eager to introduce myself today. How's everybody doing? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So what's going on the show today?
Well, today we're talking with local nonprofit Detroit House Horsepower. They have a new home in the city of Detroit. We're going to talk with the executive director about what it means for the organization and why they're excited about it. But first, here on the Metro, our national politics have been going through some changes lately. 2 weeks ago, former President Donald Trump was nearly assassinated while campaigning in Pennsylvania. Then Republicans held their national convention and tried to appeal to a younger, more diverse, and more pro-union audience. Then last Sunday, under pressure from many Democrats, President Joe Biden decided to end his campaign for president and nominate his vice president, Kamala Harris. So amid all these changes, how are Democrats in Michigan responding, and what do they think needs to happen to keep the state blue in 2024? To discuss this now, we have Warren Evans here, Wayne County Executive. Executive Evans, thanks for joining us on the Metro.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, what was your reaction to President Biden's decision to end his reelection campaign?
Probably the right decision. I think only he knows for sure, but certainly the perception was that he wasn't up to the task for the rest of the way. I think the choice of he endorsing Kamala Harris and the fact that she's the vice president of the United States, I think is the perfect call. I think she's an ideal candidate. I am very, very supportive of her and have been for a while. So I think she's a good candidate, really an ideal candidate. I mean, unfortunately, this race is going to be won from the diametrically opposed forces in many ways, and it's going to be a referendum on, where the U.S. and America is at this time in history. I think, hope strongly that it will be one for a candidate who is well qualified, well reasoned, and will follow in many ways the policies that will continue to make Michigan grow and Michigan be better. I mean, I think it's great for the whole country, but being a Michigan elected official, I'm certainly most concerned about my constituents.
Speaking of concerns, this past year you came onto the Metro and you kind of warned the Biden campaign that they needed to do more to include black voters and local black representatives in their campaign strategy. You had even said you voted uncommitted in the primary over some of this dissatisfaction with Democrats. I want to play a quick cut we had from that conversation back in March.
It is not necessarily that there's any structural change I'd like to see in policy. What I'd like to do is be at the table when the policy is being created so input can be given. Part of my displeasure and those mayors that I talk to is the lack of inclusion, and in many respects, the apathy of voters can be directly tied to the enthusiasm or lack of same that those elected people have.
So with Harris, lining up to be in charge now, how should her presidential campaign involve local leaders? Do you see this as like a new opportunity maybe to include local representatives such as yourself to craft the message and policy?
I absolutely do, and I think she's going to bring a level of enthusiasm that was lacking, and that enthusiasm, I think, will produce some new voters. And get some of the apathy away from some of the other voters. So I think she's going to be a shot in the arm for the Democratic Party, and I'm looking forward to working very hard to see that she gets elected.
What do you want her policy platform to look like? I think a lot of folks are wondering what is the difference between a Kamala Harris presidency and a Joe Biden presidency. What policies could be attractive to Wayne County voters? What are you trying to talk to the campaign about on that front?
Well, obviously, there's been a reasonably strong commitment to the state of Michigan in the Biden administration. I would hope that would continue. I hope the policies would be ones that would be, while business friendly, to continue to attract jobs and create economic development, but to also understand the plight of workers, to understand the problems with inflation and those sorts of things. And I think those are right in her wheelhouse, quite frankly. I think much of Biden's policies were not the problem. Maybe the energy level and some of the focused positions might be a little different. But I think I see Kamala Harris is really just what the doctor ordered.
As someone who understands a lot of the frustrations historically of black voters, can you tell us a little bit about where folks are at these days? And it sounds like you think this will have a pretty big impact on enthusiasm and turnout as well. But for those folks that maybe are, needing some convincing, how does this change things?
Well, I mean, I think you're just going to see the energy level difference, and that, when you put the battery cables on the battery, it does some things, and so we'll see it increased energy. I can already see, strong mobilization of women voters. A very, very important, whether it's minority women or not. Women are a very strong part of the Democratic Party's voting. And I see the opportunity for men who traditionally are a little more lethargic to be supercharged here, too. And so I see it as a positive opportunity in this last few months to at least start to steer the ship in a different direction, and I'm excited.
A lot is being kind of resurfaced about some of these older conversations we had back in 2020 about Harris's background as a prosecutor in Oakland and Attorney General of California, and how that maybe hurt some of her previous presidential ambitions among black voters even. And I'm wondering if you think that has much of an impact here in Detroit. Do you think black Detroiters care about this, like Kamala's a cop meme that is back in full force on social media if you look at the discourse?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think most people realize that when you take a job, your responsibility is to carry out the functions of that job, and those are not all the office holders' ideas of what it optimally should be or could be, but they're doing the job and they're trying to change the structure where they think it needs to propel the office forward, whether it's Attorney General or whatever else. I mean, I think, politics is a contact sport, and we know people are going to throw bricks at her, but I don't think it's going to resonate well, period. But I certainly don't think it's going to resonate well in the African-American community.
I mean, the ultimate question for Democratic voters, I think, is can she win? And I want to hear from you a little bit. What's the case for Harris having a better chance than President Biden, who already beat Trump once?
Well, I mean, if not her, who? We're in a situation where there is going to be another candidate. That candidate is in a position to gaining support more every day. So I don't think the convention is going to be difficult. There's going to be a problem. She has access to the campaign funds from the Biden administration. I think everything, and she's the vice president of the United States. So obviously the plan was, if anything were to happen to the president, she would become the president of the United States. I think she's admirably qualified. I think 4 years ago people understood that and were comfortable with it, and I think it's very clear that she could be elevated, and we would be comfortable as a country with her. I'm not saying everybody in the country would be in love with her. That's why politics is what it is. But I think she would be a great representative for the United States throughout the world, and I'm very comfortable with that.
President Trump has been making some appeals to black voters as well. Obviously, he came to Detroit a few weeks back. His campaign has been trying to peel off, I think, black men in particular. I'm wondering, for you, it's a smaller percentage of, the voting population in Detroit and in Wayne County in particular, but these margins become really important in tight elections, which we might see in Michigan, this really key battleground state. Do you have any concerns about that, about how effective maybe that message has been from Republicans reaching out to disaffected black voters?
I think Vice President Harris changes that significantly. I think there will be a strong tendency to gravitate toward her, to be supportive of her. And I think the real challenge in Michigan is not going to be whether Kamala Harris is a good candidate. It's going to be, is the Michigan Democratic Party going to have the foresight to use this opportunity in the right way, which is getting back to the taped piece that you played, and that is engaging black leaders throughout the state of Michigan for their input in how to help make this a more effective race.
Do you think that, what's your relationship like with the Democratic Party these days?
It's a cordial relationship. I don't have personality problems with people. I have problems with the structure, and the structure is just one that seems to work its own course. I don't know where it developed that course, but when you don't talk to throughout the state of Michigan, when you don't talk to black elected officials, mayors, and those folks, and they have all told me that they don't talk with the party, it's kind of hard to, I think it ought to be hard to create the enthusiasm you want with minority voters when you're not listening to the people that those minority voters have already voted for and placed in office. So, I think there needs to be some internal changes made in the party, but it doesn't change my enthusiasm for the candidate. It does make me a little concerned as to whether we put our best foot forward soon enough.
I find that really interesting. I've heard those concerns from other black Democratic leaders in the city, and I've heard it in relation to the Biden campaign as well as the Michigan Democratic Party. I kind of wonder how we got to this moment, given that the ascendancy of Kamala Harris is going to put a lot more emphasis on black political power and the power of black voters, particularly black women. And it's just interesting in a state where that seems to be very important come election time that we seem to be in that situation. Do you have any more kind of insight about how that happened?
No, I hope folks in the party are smart enough to understand this is a significant opportunity to change gears a little bit. The people that I'm talking about who have been kind of not listened to by the party are not folks who are at odds or at war with the party. Our concern is, don't wait until 4 weeks before the election and do as happens in most election cycles. Come forward and say, hey, we really need you to pound the pavement, 4 weeks to the election, and we need to get the vote out. This is the time that you listen to the electeds. You work on a strategy with the community and those electeds to do that way before the traditional 4-year panic. And that's, as long as I've been in politics, that's the way it's been. Wait until the last minute, and then I think with an assumption that black folks are going to vote Democratic, and okay, so go pound the pavement and get them out. That's old. That's old thinking. It's silly thinking, and it's not something I want to continue to be involved with.
How do you see the pressure being placed on black women voters in particular? And it feels like Democrats come to them every 4 years with, help, we need you to save the country and vote a certain way to do that. It feels like we're gearing up for that again. How do people hold that in their hearts, that kind of tension and pressure?
I don't think that tension and pressure is going to be a big issue this time because there's a release for the pressure, and that's Kamala Harris. There's an opportunity for women to assert themselves in such a way that you can have a woman president of the United States, and I think that's what people will be focused on. I think that's what people's energy level will be based on, and I don't think it's just women. I mean, I am very comfortable with a woman president, Kamala Harris as president, and frankly, I would be comfortable with a woman vice president. I see great opportunities for the country here, and great opportunities for Michigan, which is going to be a key swing state. So we'll see what happens. I certainly don't have any insight into the VP selection, but I do think we've got a strong candidate for president of the United States, and I think that we ought to be excited about it.
Well, let's leave off on an optimistic note. Wayne County Executive Warren Evans, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. You just heard from Malachi Barrett. I'm Tia Graham. Today, partly cloudy, a high of 85 degrees. Tomorrow, hump day. A chance of rain and thunderstorms with a high of 84 degrees. Coming up, we'll have a conversation with a Michigan Republican representative about what he makes of the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. You all stay right there.
WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at the University of Detroit Mercy. UDM is offering a new Master of Science degree in ethical leadership focused on sustainable, ethical, and inclusive problem solving. Admission is open to qualified applicants with a bachelor's degree in any field. Course selection is flexible, with no prerequisites, 4 required courses, and 6 electives. Learn more at business.udmercy.edu.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham, and I am here with Bridge Detroit reporter Malachi Barrett. Malachi, thank you so much for being here with us this week.
My pleasure. This has been a lot of fun.
Okay, so far, how's it been going?
Yeah, I think it's been good. I mean, hopefully our listeners are not turning off the radio as soon as they hear my voice, but I think it's been going well.
I think so as well. And how is radio for you? Because you're a print journalist, so how is radio treating you?
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate the opportunity for people to see. They have a window into the interviews that I'm doing all the time as a print reporter, right? But now you get to kind of hear what our process is like, how there's back and forth with the subject, how maybe some of my questions change as we hear things from people. And I just think it's a much more kind of organic process, and it's cool to bring people into that. You know, people are just seeing the written, product of my writing. This is a lot different. I appreciate it.
Awesome. I appreciate the work that you do as well. And getting to know you a little bit more, why did you decide to go into journalism?
I mean, cliche, right? I was inspired by the idea of creating accountability for powerful people. I always thought that was a very important responsibility of journalists. I also just like the idea of holding this perspective of being a pretty regular, normal person while also being in rooms and being surrounded by people who would probably never talk to me otherwise, or places I would never have access to. So I try to bring that with me, the perspective of just being a guy in this place and trying to translate what's happening for regular folks.
Yeah, that was another question. A lot of the times when I think about the topics that you're covering, whether it's city council, whether it's something that's heavy or even light, you find a way to write about it. I like to say Malachi's politics for dummies almost, because we write it in a way that I understand it, and very complex topics, and you break it down very easily. So how do you approach that when you're breaking down these really complex topics to everyday people?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a self-described dummy, so that's helpful. I always tell people that I live in a sense of confusion. And yeah, I mean, I think it's important to make government accessible for folks in particular. And there's a lot of different roadblocks for people being able to get involved in the process. Some of it is just the language that we use to describe what's happening. And that it's really easy to actually just tell a friend what's going on. But for some reason, when we write, news about government, it has to have all of these different kind of layers and barriers to it. So my goal is just to inform people. I mean, I try to make sense of this world, hopefully empower them with some information that they can use. And also it helps me make sense of the world too. So I think it's made me kind of a better person by doing that. And I love that about it.
And my last question to you, of course, journalism, of course, working for Bridge Detroit, and being a Detroiter now, being a native, or not a native necessarily, but being a Detroiter now and adopting the city. Tell me a little bit about what it's been like reporting on your adopted city.
I'm an East Sider now.
Yeah.
I live kind of by the corner of Mack and Van Dyke, so you might see me running around or riding my bike in ridiculous workout attire. But no, I love Detroit. I mean, I have kind of moved all over the place growing up. So I've always kind of been the guy coming into a community being like, hey, can you accept me, please? And I think Detroiters have been really accepting, and I have a lot of... I just carry a lot of like responsibility and try to, keep their concerns at the forefront, because I think Detroiters have not always been served well by media in the city, and I think it's important if I'm going to be here as a transplant to be a good one. So
yeah. Well, you're teaching a lot of folks about what's happening within their city government. So thank you so much for the work you do at Bridge Detroit. But Malachi, we are about to hear from the Mishmash crew. We're talking about political violence.
Yeah, let's switch it up a little bit.
Just a little bit.
How do we navigate this polarized political climate that we're in very, peacefully? Since the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, concerns are rising about our American brand of political violence. On the latest episode of Mishmash, Gongwer News Service's Zach Gorchow and Alethea Casbin dive into these anxieties with State House Representative Mike Harris. He's a Republican from Waterford. Harris has a background in law enforcement, and he began this conversation by discussing how Trump was almost killed and whether the Secret Service made a mistake.
We can't plan for everything, and looking at all the things that potentially could go wrong that, organizations like the Secret Service try and train for, you still can't accommodate for everything. And there's so many unanswered questions right now, which is why I'm glad that there's an investigation going on to really dig into those unanswered questions and see if we can figure out where we went wrong.
So can you describe how the Secret Service and local law enforcement are supposed to mesh at an event like this? You mentioned you were involved in a number of these.
Yeah, so at least back in the time where I worked on these presidential details, there was instant communication between Secret Service and law enforcement, local law enforcement. I've even had instances where I've had to call in a potential threat of something that was going on. For example, I believe it was the Obamas that came through on a train in Waterford, and we had a couple of people start walking up towards the tracks. It was such an instantaneous response by the Secret Service once it got called in. I would have to believe those protocols are still priority for them, right? They want to jump on things as soon as they know about them. Obviously, not being at this event, it's really hard to tell what details caused an opening in the security issue. But normally, there's briefings that happen with local law enforcement. Like I said, there's usually communication arrays that are set up. So there's usually instantaneous conversations that can happen between Secret Service and local law enforcement. So knowing what they're doing a couple years after I got out of the game is, I can only imagine the idea is that it's improved with technology and evolving tactics.
Okay, so, you mentioned there is an investigation, that's happening. There's going to be likely multiple investigations in the weeks ahead. And there are questions, that people have that need to be answered. What questions are in your mind right now after seeing what happened over the weekend? What do you want answered?
I think a lot of it, and I'm glad it's a bipartisan issue, so we don't turn this political. We look at hopefully just the facts of the case. Debriefings, whether it's internally with the Secret Service, internally with the law enforcement agencies that were involved, and then, the public investigation that's going on at the federal level. I think some of the things that need to be asked are obviously, who was responsible for covering certain areas around the venue. Open air venues are really, really tough to manage. And, it enlarges the number of problems that could happen. So, but my experience has been there's always someone responsible for different areas. So who was responsible for that? How did this get missed? What was the delay in communication, if any, between local law enforcement or bystanders seeing this person on the roof and action actually taking place. I think those are some of the main things that we need to get to. And then there's a lot more probably at a granular level to look at after that. But I think those are probably some of the top questions.
So after a traumatic event like this, it's kind of follows a similar pattern sometimes where there's been a range of responses, in this case from the Republicans, because it was their party's president who was shot. Some are furious with President Biden, and the Democrats saying their criticism of Trump created a climate for someone to try to kill him. And others have called for lowering the temperature, that while this is a very emotional time, there's also lots of blame to go around in both parties when it comes to vilifying elected officials in the other party. And what are your thoughts today? I suppose there's probably a range of emotions yourself that you've been feeling.
There is. And, probably day by day, some of that range, expands or contracts. I think we all probably play into the responsibility here for where the country's gone with rhetoric and villainization of, key political figures. And, again, I think we all probably can point our fingers at ourselves at some point where we have, instead of attacking policy, we're attacking the person. And I think we need to get away from that. Villainization of people, even though we disagree, is not a good look for any of us. And this is not what our country should be. And, you have people, regardless of whether you agree with their philosophies or not, that are serving the public. They are making a lot of sacrifices with their family, their time, to do what they believe is right. Now, whether we all believe their policies are right or not, I think, again, that's something we can be critical of on the policy level, but I think we need to get away from actually villainizing their character.
That was State Representative Mike Harris speaking with Gongwa News Service's Zach Gorcho and Alethea Caspin on WDET's State Politics podcast, Mishmash. You can find episodes of Mishmash on WDET.org or wherever you find your podcasts.
This is the Metro on 1019 WDET. Coming up, we'll talk about the local nonprofit Detroit Horsepower, their new home in the city of Detroit, and why they're so excited. You all stay right there. It's the Metro on 1019 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham, and I am joined by Malachi Barrett, Bridge Detroit reporter. This week, the whole week, it's Tuesday, and we're going to be talking about horses up next, Malachi. And I'm wondering, have you ever ridden a horse?
I have not. I've never had the opportunity.
Desire?
Pleasure. No, and I might catch a little heat for this. I've been on record before. I think horses are kind of weird. I think they're a little gross. Their proportions scare me. Their mouths and their teeth are too big. So I'm sorry to Detroit Horsepower. I know you guys are doing good work, but horses are not for me.
Oh. That is so funny to me because it's just like horses are just so like majestic.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Magical.
Right?
And you're just like, yeah, weird.
They're tall. They have big legs. They could kick you. They're not going to. I've never had a bad experience with a horse. I probably shouldn't. I guess I'm prejudging all these horses, and I'm sorry.
I think what I love the most about the take is like you're not welcoming a bad experience either. You know what I mean? Like you're not welcoming that type of experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to stay clear, basically.
Yeah.
I've spent some time on Mackinac Island, and I think that has not helped with my horse aversion.
You're right. You're right. That is true. However, we do love horses around here. David Silver, when you hear the word horsepower, you probably think of a Mustang, but the expression originally came from actual horses, and Detroit has those too. Founded in 2015 by David Silver, the Detroit Horsepower nonprofit uses horses to teach critical skills to kids ages 11 to 18. And now the organization has a newer, bigger space. The over 25,000 square foot equestrian center will support field trips, summer camps, and after-school programs, complete with stables to accommodate up to 17 horses. The space is also outfitted with an indoor riding arena, a horse grazing area, classrooms, and a community space. Joining the show now to tell us more about the new location, the importance of horse rearing, we have David Silver, the founder and executive director of Detroit Horsepower. David, welcome to the Metro.
Tia, thank you so much for having me. And Malachi, I hope to change your mind.
I think you got a good shot.
Coming in hot. So, David, I'm so excited to speak with you again. We spoke about a year ago. And give us a quick rundown on what you've been doing and why you've dedicated your life to teaching kids in Detroit.
Well, I'm incredibly privileged that horses were a huge part of my life when I was growing up, and I moved to Detroit in 2012 to become an elementary school teacher. And so since 2015, I'm so fortunate to be able to combine these parts of my life that are so important to me of horses, education, and Detroit. We've been bringing kids from the city to partner horse barns outside Detroit that let us use their space and their horses for us to run free summer horse camps and an after-school program. But we've always dreamed about making horses accessible within the communities that our students live and turning a large parcel of vacant land into a community asset where residents want to see horses as part of the neighborhood's future. And we're so excited to be taking some huge strides towards that vision and bringing this to reality in the near future.
And David, when we chatted previously, you talked about how far you were going as far as Dexter, which is almost an hour away from Detroit. So if you can, just talk about what it means to be able to have a stable home.
Yeah, I love that. We are so transient, going from barn to barn all over Southeast Michigan. We've spent time this summer in Washtenaw County. We've been in Northern Oakland County. We've been in St. Clair County, and we cover a wide geography to go to generous partner barns that allow us to use their space and their horses for our programs. But our students really never get to interact with the same horse twice, especially in our after-school program where students keep the learning going through the school year. We're always going to a new space. Our students don't have a space to call their own and get to build consistent relationships with the same students. That's not to say, our students are incredibly talented, and here at summer camp, we have 6 of our talented youth leaders employed through Go to Detroit's Young Talent, and they are essentially running the show, using what they've learned through our program to be the ones teaching brand new students that are just having their first experiences with horses. But it'll go so much further when students can build that consistency in their own communities at a space that they can call their own, that they can take ownership of, and that actually contributes to stronger neighborhoods.
So Detroit Public Schools Community District Board of Education, they approved the purchase of the 14-acre site that you had your eyes on the last time we spoke. You were talking about that Paul Robeson School, which was demolished in 2012 after a fire. So you were looking at this area of Finkel and Linwood. You have secured this permanent location. Once again, this particular location, let's talk about being in that area of Detroit and being able to reach the kids in that community and the other neighborhoods that connect to that Finkel and Linwood area.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a game changer for our students and so many more. They're going to be able to access horses once we open this new barn. Target grand opening date is early 2026. But what makes this such a unique partnership and such a special blend, and we call this the Urban Equestrian Center, so blending an existing neighborhood with access to horses, is that residents here in the Hope Village neighborhood have embraced Detroit Horsepower and our plans to add horses to the community's future. This started in 2017 when we first began introducing ourselves, when Focused Hope put us on the agenda for town hall meetings and asking if we could present at block clubs and setting up our own events, bringing horses to the neighborhood and starting conversations with residents. And so this only works. Detroit Horsepower will only be successful in the long run because this is a match of a really great site for horses, but it's in a community that wants horses to be part of the neighborhood's future. And that's what's going to make this so special.
Right now, we're chatting with David Silver of Detroit Horsepower about the recent purchase of its new home in the city of Detroit, right in that Dexter-Linwood community. And now that you're breaking ground on an urban equestrian center in Detroit, number one, how was it funded? Because I know that was one of the things that was really holding you back when you were looking to purchase this particular space. How was it funded?
Yeah, we're incredibly fortunate to have amazing partners in philanthropy. The Kresge Foundation has been a leading partner on this project going back many years. The state of Michigan has also been our largest contributor with 3 allocations to help build this new barn. And I think we've got more than at least 40, probably closer to 50 different donors, other foundations, some corporate partners that are, putting us in a position to break ground now that we have close to $7 million has been committed to this project. We still have a $2.5 million gap that we're working to close, but we're really confident that this community has embraced unique youth development opportunities and creative open space transformation so that horses can be a part of a stronger future for Detroit's kids and communities.
David, I want to help folks understand a little bit more about the kind of transformative power of this. Can you give us some examples or maybe one key example that stands out in your mind of a child that was really affected in a positive way by being involved with your organization?
Oh, sure. You don't have to look far. We've got talented youth leaders that have come up through our program. Certainly, a great example of that is Liera, who I've known since she was a first grader because she attended Burns, the school that I used to teach at. She's been in our program since she was in 4th grade and just graduated from Cass Tech last year, going on to college in the fall. But right now, we're really lucky to have her and many of her peers on our staff for the summer, being the ones teaching brand new students about horses and I haven't gotten to say yet the life lessons that horses teach us, which we call the PERKS traits, stands for perseverance, empathy, responsible risk-taking, confidence, and self-control. These are the social-emotional skills we learn from horses, and to watch the young people who have come up through our program develop them and use them in their everyday lives, but now even more so being the ones teaching about horses and how they can make us better people to brand new students is amazing to see.
And David, for families interested, what should they know? Is the program free for students? And as well, just for Malachi's benefit, are you going to, extend this out so we can start teaching adults about horses?
That's an interesting question. The student one is easier for me. So our programs are free for Detroit residents because we're supported by donations and grants. We do have quite a lengthy waiting list because in large part our capacity is limited by, the transportation barriers. We pick students up in Detroit. We drive them out to these partner barns. We offer, meals and this whole experience. We do have, more demand than we can currently accommodate. I would love to have families interested in getting involved. Go to the website. Best thing is to send an email. My email address is on there, or other members of our team, and then we can add you to our waiting list. We just need to know name, age, and an address to confirm Detroit residency. And certainly as we get construction underway this fall and open the new facility by 2026, we'll have far more capacity to serve youth in the future. I do expect there will be some opportunities for adults to learn how to ride. The best way we see that is that if we can pay the experienced students who have come up through our program, who are experienced horse people and ready to teach others, they can be the ones getting paid to teach adults how to ride. That's the best kind of win-win we can see as a youth development program, because if we only taught adults how to ride, it would really take time and horse capacity away from our core youth programming.
Yeah.
I'm willing to learn from the children. The children are the future.
Right. Oh, I say that all the time.
I'll ask our youth leaders. We'll get you on a horse, Malachi.
He's holding you to that, so don't think this is a joke. David Silver, thank you so much for joining us. David is the founder and executive director of the nonprofit Detroit Horsepower, who will be opening or breaking ground on this fall into the winter on their new location and hopefully opening up by 2026 in that Dexter-Linwood area. David, thank you so much for being here with us on the Metro.
Thank you so much for having me.
up, we are talking with Rochelle Riley. She is Director of Arts and Culture for the City of Detroit about an HBCU film festival that's coming to Michigan Central in the next few months.
It's the Metro on 1019 WDET FM. I am Tia Graham, and I am joined all week by Bridge Detroit reporter Malachi Barrett. Malachi, once again, I always want to say this. Thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Really, really happy to be here.
Yes. So, a theme we often highlight on this show is Detroit's robust arts community. Whether you see a giant mural or smaller street art, creative minds are constantly churning out their work around the city. In recent years, especially with the creation of Tubi, more and more Detroiters are experimenting with film, creating and producing and acting in the industry. And that's why it's exciting that the City of Detroit and Michigan Central recently partnered with Autumn Sun, a grassroots organization dedicated to young Black artists. They're hosting the inaugural HBCU Student Film Festival, and the film festival is the first of its kind. Student creators will screen their films at Michigan Central on August 23rd, with a competition winner chosen on August 24th and given up to $10,000. To tell us a little bit more about the film festival now and what else is happening with the Office of Arts, Culture, and Entrepreneurship for the City of Detroit, we have its director, Rochelle Riley, here. Rochelle, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, exciting to talk about arts in the City of Detroit. So what's unique about Detroit's film industry right now that has brought this collaboration to us?
Well, I can tell you, first of all, that art is business and business is good in Detroit. We are doing everything. I focused a lot in the first few years setting up an office, which, as you know, didn't exist for almost 20 years. But now we do everything. We are on the national mural map because people are paying attention to what we're doing here and how we do it. And that's one of the most exciting things for me. I want people to know that Detroit doesn't always have to look someplace else for what somebody else is doing. People are looking to us. We had Cleveland to come and visit for 2 days because they wanted to know what we were doing. I'm going to speak in Akron about what we're doing. I've had some folks reach out from Long Beach, California, because they want to do what Detroit is doing. We are not only re-embracing ourselves as an innovative center that, originates stuff, but we're doing that. So about the festival, I was approached by this young man who's a filmmaker and Detroit native who said, I want the kids at HBCUs to have the same opportunity to show their film and have careers in film as anybody else. So I'm doing this festival. I said, all right, let's do it. And Michigan Central signed on immediately, and we're going to screen the films at New Lab, and we're going to have panel discussions and other things about film because we have a huge film community here, not just with Tubi, although Tubi is smoking, but because we have so many people who want to do this, whether we have film incentives or not. We lost the film incentives, but we didn't lose the passion.
And have we heard talks about anything like that, bringing the incentives back or bringing anything that would bring our film industry back in a robust way?
There are folks who have been working on it forever. So, I mean, just because it left doesn't mean the effort to bring it back stopped. And there have been discussions and there have been bills that are being proposed in Lansing. I'm waiting until somebody calls me up and says, okay, Rochelle, come put the cherry on top. So I can write a column like I used to, stand up and make a speech, and just remind them again that art is business. And when you have people coming here to do things, it becomes the place where people come to live.
And when I hear art is business, and I think about the money that is being brought in, number one, I think about that there are artists in the city of Detroit now who are paid to do the work, to actually sell their art and sell their product that they're creating. But, what kind of money does art bring in? Because there are so many young people in general, people just local Detroiters who think, I can't make money doing this.
Well, let me say two things. I'm waiting for a new study, but in 2014, the Brookings Institute did a study that showed that the creative arts industry in America contributed more to the gross national product than the auto industry. I think that we have similar situations here where we don't know how amazingly robust our creative arts industry is. And once we start focusing on that and stop thinking that art is a hobby, art is a business. Artists are businesses. Every dancer is a small business. Every actor is a small business. Every musician is a small business. And I want all of those kids who see those things and say, I want to do that. Their next sentence should not be, I have to leave Detroit to do that. I want them here.
Right now, we're chatting with Rochelle Riley, the Director of Arts and Culture for the City of Detroit. We're chatting about, of course, the HBCU Film Festival that's coming to Michigan Central in the next few months. New Lab's a beautiful space. It's perfect to host and hold an event just like this one. So this is going to be the first film festival of its kind in the City of Detroit. Talk about trying to set that precedent or trying to set that example as it goes forward on in terms of the way we are addressing and communicating to young black people that they're important.
At a time when there are people who are literally trying to erase black history and erase black people from history, the achievements, the accomplishments, the contributions to making America, we want people to see this. These films are short docs that represent the vision of these kids, and I'm calling them kids. They're seniors and recent grads, so they're mini adults. Yeah. But I want people to know that if you have a vision, if you have a story, if you have something to say in this country, in this city that welcomes everybody, we want you to have the ability to say it. We want people to see that, and I want that to happen here every year. I want this to be the first of an annual thing that happens here. I want Autumn Sun to bring it here all the time. And HBO To Go, Byron Allen's company, is going to he's going to show this live on HBO To Go, which means people around the country will see Detroit once again in a light that says, we're doing it, and we're doing it for ourselves.
I love that we bring up Byron Allen because that's the person that my parents talked about often. Byron Allen. So if we could just go into the importance of what role Byron Allen's playing in this.
Well, the fact that his company decided to do this, there's going to be a red carpet, with interviews. And there's also going to be the actual screenings, and there's going to be the gala at Michigan Central. Last time we had a gala at Michigan Central was after that amazing concert when it opened. So this is one of the first events to happen at Michigan Central since then, which again speaks to the importance of giving these voices and this moment a great, spot in the sun.
Yes, highlighting different parts of our city as well, activating different parts of our city as well, thinking about activating art alleys.
Great segue.
Art alleys. They are absolutely taken over. You see them randomly as you're walking through this, and you just look over like, oh my gosh. So go into the art alley program and then some of the things that you all have been doing with the ARPA funds to continue it on.
I can tell you that if there's anything that Mayor Mike Duggan has been focused on, it is literally making sure that people come and live here, increasing population, making this space beautiful. And the way you make people come is to make it a place they want to be. I keep telling people the creative arts is not a hobby. The creative arts is not something at the bottom. One of my greatest victories at City Hall was it's not arts and culture anymore. It's the creative workforce and creative economy. And just getting people to say those words instead of, oh, it's arts and culture, let's go paint a painting, go sing a song. No, we're talking the business of creative economy in our city. That means all of that. That's why my office is called the Office of Arts, Culture, and Entrepreneurship. It is about business. It is about making sure that people can do what they want to do for a passion. I don't want anybody to feel like I'm one of the most creative people in the world, but that has to be my side hustle.
Yeah.
No, my side hustle is working for the mayor. I'm a writer. I'm a writer by trade, warrior by necessity still, and I work hard at my side hustle. But I don't want anybody to feel like I'm an amazing musician, but I can't do that in Detroit. We have people who work on the line. We have people who work in stores who are brilliant and who don't feel like they can do that first. I want them to be themselves first. And so that's why the arts alleys are so important because, and mind you, that's my only ARPA project. I was assigned $5.4 million in neighborhood beautification funds to do arts alleys. And everybody's familiar with the Z Alley downtown that, it's a huge entertainment space. People go hang out. I go hang out there.
Yeah.
Well, all of my work that I'm doing and have been doing for 5 years now, just celebrated the 5-year anniversary, is in the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So we're doing 9 alleys across the city in different neighborhoods, and we're turning them into these amazing gathering spaces with art, with space for people to have events, for people to just hang out, for people to do festivals, mini festivals, all of that. And by the time we're done, I'm hoping that we can continue to get people to do that.
Yes, thank you so much. I could have continued to talk to you about this because I have so many other questions, but we are at the end of the show. Rochelle Riley, the Director of Arts, Culture, and Entrepreneurship for the City of Detroit. Rochelle, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro. We're going to have you back, of course, to talk more about the film festival. We're going to talk about art alleys and everything else that your office is doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's the Metro for Tuesday, July 23rd. You can listen to recent episodes online at WDET.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. The show's also on YouTube if you like listening that way, which I know I do.
The show is produced by Sam Corey, David Lyons, and Jack Philbrandt. Additional production support from Anil Scott and Sydney Walkley, and our engineer is Nate Bender, and our music's done by Sam Bobian and Will Sessions.
The Metro is a production of WDET, a listener-supported service of Wayne State University. If you like what you hear and you want to support the Metro, consider becoming a member at wdet.org/donate.
This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you tomorrow. That is myself, Tia Graham, and Malachi Barrett of Bridge, Detroit.
Come on back tomorrow.
WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM is offering a new master's degree in ethical leadership focused on sustainable, ethical, and inclusive problem solving. More information at business.udmercy.edu.